Good morning, everybody. I'm Ann Christensen, a prayer practitioner at Light on the Mountains. Oh, and now it is time. Sorry.
The hard part's all over, Ann.
Thank you. Well, I thought I wasn't going to get here at one point, so anyway, but I'm here, and it's wonderful. So now it's time to take a deep breath and to let all of that go and go within. I know that there is one universal spirit, one infinite intelligence, one divine presence, one creative force. That force, that presence, that spirit, that intelligence is everywhere within everything in the universe, and it is right here, right now, within each one of us, as it always is. And I am so grateful for that for our philosophy that we get here and that we learn about and that we grow with. And I give thanks for that, and I give thanks for this wonderful place and for everyone who makes it so perfect, so wonderful, and to keep it working all the time. And I give thanks for this beautiful, beautiful morning and all the wonderful things that are going on outside everywhere. And I give thanks for Reverend John and his always perfect message. I give thanks for R.L. and his wonderful music and our new songbooks. And I give thanks for each and every person who helps us. And I give thanks for the beautiful flowers right in front of me. And I give thanks for all of this. And together we say, and so it is. The reading this morning is from this month's Science of Mind magazine, and it is one of the last articles in here, and this thing is just full of good stuff, so I highly recommend it. I know that there's some in the back room, and this is an article by Carol Carnes, who is a minister, and quite a good one, I imagine. And it's entitled, Find Your Voice, Claim Your Power. And she starts out, walking back from taking out the trash, I heard a female voice calling to me. Hi there, she said from her car as I walked over to her. You don't know me, she said. I just moved in here. I assume we're close in age. I've noticed you with your white hair climbing up and down the stairs to your apartment. That's impressive. I chose the downstairs unit because I know the day will come when I won't be able to navigate stairs. I smiled, trying not to sound spiritually, and said, I chose the upstairs unit because I know that day will never come. She looked a little thrown off guard. We exchanged names. I could tell she thought I was some kind of weirdo, but I was speaking truth to circumstance. When Jesus spoke to his disciples about his imminent suffering and physical death, Peter tried to protect him, to save him. Jesus turned to Peter and said, Get behind me, Satan. You are a disastrous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. It is indeed a dangerous trap to see things merely at the effect level and not from divine cause. It is tempting to believe the stories humans have told themselves about reality, but it is the person who sees through the appearance and judges it righteously who lives in greater freedom, health, and well-being. As an example, you have a bad cold. It's a circumstance. Speak truth to it. This is quotes. This is merely a temporary fluctuation in the energy flow within my body. I release all limiting ideas that have functioned as cause to this condition. I am grateful for my perfect health. There are many ways to speak truth to circumstance. One is a short and direct response. No, I do not accept this. I do not have any use for this in my life. Another practice is to root out thoughts of lack and limitation. replacing them immediately with such phrases as, "I live in ever-increasing abundance. I am joyfully grateful for all the good that is mine today." There's also the immediate need to speak truth to the circumstances of the world. In the early days of our teaching, ardent metaphysicians didn't have to deal with constant access to world news. It was easier to avoid being inundated with negativity and to focus on the good, the true, and the beautiful. Today, it can seem irresponsible not to have an informed opinion, not to know the details of the many frightening events in our shared experience, but it is irresponsible to simply accept negativity without countering it with truth. With practice, we learn to maintain a detached perception, seeing through the immediate conditions to what is emergent. But it requires the conviction that all begins in mind with a capital M, that life is for us and never against us. We want to remember that chaos precedes a new order. What seem to be end times are beginnings of a new and more evolved way of being together on this planet. What doesn't fit with a vision of a world of peace and plenty will be removed if we do not allow our minds to be convinced by appearances of the contrary. We can develop the power to speak truth. It takes practice to be positive about what seems negative, to know it is all temporary and the harbinger of a breakthrough in our collective consciousness. You may have noticed that human mind doesn't allow for meaningful change without some internal debate. We intend to make positive changes, and then issues from years ago pop up, and we get caught up in that old loop again. It's a delay tactic of the ego mind. Its job is to maintain the status quo until a new one is firmly established. Best advice from an old-timer: keep at it. Practice speaking truth from spiritual insight all day, every day, as much as you can. Affirm, I know, this is quotes, "I know something wonderful is emerging through all of us. I keep my mind on the vision. I choose how to think about everything I see. I am not swayed by external appearances." When things fall apart in the outer world, it usually means something greater is trying to come together. Whether it's a relationship, a job, or a government, when things are no longer evolving, they tend to dissolve. Like the caterpillar at the point of becoming the butterfly, conditions must be unworkable for the shift to happen. We live in such times. We respond to the deep, soul-driven desire for greater freedom and justice, for equal rights and access to opportunity for everyone. We seek to heal the mess we made through decision and policy-making processes. In The Oversoul, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "The things we now esteem fixed shall, one by one, detach themselves like ripe fruit from our experience and fall. The wind shall blow them none knows whither, but not without our insistence that they fall." What you and I choose to believe now is key to initiating lasting change. We have to know that human beings are emanations of spirit. As such, we are capable of profound goodness, kindness, love, and compassion. The worst thing we can do is to fall for the rhetoric that humans are basically evil and cannot control their impulses. That is old religious dogma. That is a lie. Our job as spiritualized consciousness is to hold ourselves to a higher standard of behavior and know that we lead the way. The lasting changes will come from a new perception of who we are as spiritual beings. We need to release old religious notions of sin and an avenging or intervening God. If God were really that kind of power, it would have stopped the Holocaust, slavery, genocide, the mistreatment of children, and all the assaults on our planet. Poverty and lack of any kind would not exist. But God granted us the authority to choose, make decisions, and act on our own beliefs. It is time for humanity to wake up and act like individualizations of infinite life that we are. This is a great time to be alive, to vote, and to join with others who seek fairness and freedom. As we begin to remake our world, know this is only the beginning. Whenever there is a seismic shift in the making, opposing forces will attempt to maintain control. How should we think and participate in positive change during these challenging times? Here are my suggestions. 1, be grateful that the old toxic ways are being revealed to be healed. 2, celebrate Mother Nature and act to protect her. 3, affirm daily, I see the emergence of spiritual love in our world. We are awake to our true origins and our shared potentials. And at the bottom of the page, it has a big thing in red. Speak up. Listen to your internal wisdom and let it guide the way. And thank you for being patient with all that. So it is now time to read the affirmation for July. And it's on this piece here at the top in red. Let's read it together. I align with unlimited potentiality as I embrace the spiritual identity. Thank you. And now for some wonderful music.
Thank you, Ann. Good morning, everyone. Here's my thought of the day. Everything Ann just read. That was perfect. Wow. Wow. I could go back and just reread that, I don't know, for the rest of the day. Look at this abundant group of people here this morning. There are a lot of people sitting out here that you can't see, and there are a lot of people up there that we can't see. I still look at you like you have faces. I wonder sometime if we should get you all to send pictures and we could put them on the back wall, and then we could see your faces when we look at the camera. Just a thought. So here's a lyric from the song I'm going to share in a minute. It says, "But different is only dangerous when we forget that in the heart we're all the same." Isn't that good? I'll read it again. But different is only dangerous when we forget that in the heart we're all the same. I have to confess that I feel like all of my classes in life are still 100 level classes. I'm still working on the basics, and maybe next lifetime I get to move on. Except here, I think I'm taking, an upper level course. I've decided to stop avoiding the people that don't think the way that I think. I'm not always successful at it. Sometimes I stumble. Sometimes I become furious. Or confused, or challenged in a way that I don't think I'm ready for. But so far, I've stayed committed to not avoiding the people who don't think the way that I think. And what I found out is that some people who I don't think the way that I think do. And some people that I think the way that I do, don't. And the life part of it is trying to remember that I have relationships that are deeper than that. It's still a class. I'm still working on it. I'll let you know how it goes. Tag John, you're it.
Okay. See if I can follow that. I sound very godlike today.
Well, then say something godlike.
Well, I'm not dressed appropriately to be that godlike. I would at least have worn a tie or something. It's hard to believe that it wasn't long ago that I actually thought the snow in our yard would never melt. No, really. Remember after we had to have an emergency shoveling of the roof, and go back to the live streams. of like in March, and you couldn't see, the snow was like above the window. And I thought, we're never even going to have the barbecue because the snow will be here. But look what happened. Things change, circumstances change, conditions change. And it's funny, we often think that they won't. We get stuck in them, we get into a little pattern of life, and we just think it's just never going to change. And what can we do about it? So as this week I was thinking of a story, I have told this story a couple times before, but I thought a lot about it this week. One, it's a fun story, and two, it's appropriate to this time in history. So did anyone during the 1980s read the quasi-spirituality books written by Shirley MacLaine? They were great. So they had all this wisdom in it mixed with Hollywood gossip. So just when you're like getting too spiritual and like, too woo-woo, it was like they, throw a little gossip in there. And I should go back to those and see if they really like, if they still work. But anyway, she told, and again, like I said, I've told this story before, but I love it. Told a story about a recurring nightmare that she had. And this recurring nightmare, apparently she had it for well over 2 weeks. And I've never had something like that happen before. I don't know if any of you have had before. But she said that in this dream, she was in a very dense jungle. And she was being chased by a really angry gorilla. And she could just, it was one of those dreams that you really felt it was real. And she's running through, you could just imagine like going through the Amazon or something. And right before the gorilla was right behind her, ready to like grab her and do whatever he was going to do to her, she woke up. And she said that she literally would be like, and cold sweat and all this. And like, it got to the point that she dreaded going to bed at night because the gorilla would be chasing her. And she says, what is this? And I'm praying or whatever, like, what's this all about? When we have dreams, we're thinking, is there a message here? Is someone trying to send me a message? So she said she had the dream again. This turned out to be the last time. And she had, I guess, what we call a lucid dream, in the sense she realized she was dreaming and she was in this dream. And again, the gorilla's chasing her. So she says, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. She turns around, faces the gorilla, why are you chasing me? And he said, in English, I don't know, lady, it's your dream. I mean, just think of that. So many things in our life. Why is this happening? Why is this person doing something to me? I think this dream would be very timely 20 years from now to look back to this weird time in history. We'll sit around, those of us that are here, like, do you remember when all that stuff used to happen? It was like we were being chased by that gorilla and we were trying to figure it out. And it does seem like that sometimes. And just so appreciate R.L. saying, I'm going to start talking to people that I disagree with. It's like, let's ask the gorilla, in a sense, what are we doing here? Because it's madness to a certain extent. Not to say that we ignore circumstances and things that are going on in our lives. There's things in the physical world that need to be addressed and resolved. But you don't do it by allowing yourself to constantly getting chased by the gorilla. And I think that's what we're doing right now, this time in history. We're just being chased by the gorilla and we don't even know why. And I think the way out eventually will be metaphorically as we turn around and say, what is this about really? It's not about opposing political ideas. It's not about I vote for this, you vote for that. It's not about this is where I put my line in the sand and this is where you put your line in the sand. There's something else that's calling us here. As Einstein said, that you can never solve a problem at the level that it was created. Or let's say, it can't be solved at the level of the gorilla. And I think we're stuck in the gorilla phase in a lot of ways. It's chasing us, it's daunting us. We think we're like, well, let me just put up an extra lock on the door and the gorilla will stay outside and the gorilla still comes in. So I think how this is going to evolve and be, I even hate to say the word solved, but the way that we will grow through this is when we turn around and again say, okay, what is this about? You showed up as the gorilla or anything else that is showing up in the world. What is this all about seeking the greater truth of this, as in our subject for the month. So this week started a mini class I'm giving. I'm starting a big class in the fall, a 27-week class, the Advanced Consciousness Studies, and you have to have all these prerequisites. So I'm helping a couple people get the last class, and I think this is going to be an exciting thing. And those who are prayer practitioners, you can come. You can't drop in and out, but you can come and dedicate yourself to it. Not that I'm pointing fingers or saying anyone you have to do this. I'm just throwing it out there. But I'm excited because I don't facilitate classes. I actually take them at the same time. But anyway, so the class that we're kind of doing cleanup work that these two people can take the class is called the Essential Earnest Homes. And for some odd reason, this class has been around for a while, and I've never taken it, and I've never given it. And after the first couple weeks, I'm actually kind of excited about it because it's not what I thought. I thought it was going to be terribly boring and terrible. So, no, just, at this point in my career, what, I'm going to lie to you? Because when you look at the big book, we call it the Science of Mind textbook, it's like, talk about gorilla. It's like, okay, I need my Superman secret decoder ring here because it's just, a little bit too much. But it's all the way that this book that we're using, so far at least, is put together. It's very bite-sized. It's very human. Goes into what was up with him? How did he go into this? But there's a couple things I want to share with you from this before I go into the larger thing I was going to. That again, I as I was reading this, thinking about the gorilla. So we think, again, why me? And so what do we do to get rid of the gorilla? We pray. Do affirmations or whatever, but I love this. Somewhere in our reading it said, from Ernest Holmes says, we have to stop praying to the solution, pray to the solution instead of praying to the problem. Just like that. I've never heard the verbiage quite like this. So in other words, stop praying for the gorilla to go away, if that makes any sense. So what would life be without the gorilla? That's what you pray for. And again, you don't say, well, the gorilla in the cage. No, you're missing the whole point. It's, I no longer fear that there is a gorilla. I have a sense of elevated consciousness in my life that I don't have to use that as a scapegoat. Oh, that gorilla, my life would be so good if he wasn't like chasing me around the market every day, or, you know what I mean? So you start with, what is it we want ultimately? Again, what do we want in our world, in our country, beyond who you vote for and things in the legislature? What do you want to accept? What do you want to grow up to? And usually they are larger spiritual truths and principles that are at the core of it. Just like R.L. was singing One Power, that kind of stuff. Those are what we need to put our prayer towards. And again, it's not putting in a form to somebody up there to send it down to you. So another thing that I got from this, prayer is not even in a sense of open to get more stuff. It's saying, and this is really the scary part, it's saying, I'm willing to get out of the way and change. That's what prayer is. It's saying, I know it's a little scary, change always is, but the prayers that you have had answered are the ones that you said on some level of your consciousness, I'm at last willing to get out of the way and change and allow it to happen. That's scary, actually, because we want everything else to change, don't we? And they do. We all change. But just think, don't you almost kind of get that heart palpitations? Like, so think of like a little conflict you have with your neighbor or a sibling or something and how you know they need to change. So what if now it's like, I'm the one that has to change. Oh my gosh, who can do that? So it is getting out of gorilla consciousness with that. But another thing from our curriculum I read that, again, as we talk about this idea of change and this thing we've talked about a million times, is change your thinking, change your life sort of thinking, how that really works. And this was so succinctly that it So it talks about, in this little paragraph, how sometimes we can feel like we're not worthy, and other times we do feel worthy. So it says, the phrase, "it is done unto us not as we were taught to believe, or as we hope to someday believe, but as we do believe in the here and now." So again, it's not about what you think you believe, but it's like what you really believe. Believing we're worthless doesn't make us worth any less than before. Nor does believing we are wonderful make us any more wonderful than we already are. Each approach does, however, cause us to think and speak and act as though our beliefs were true, and thus to attract to ourselves and to attract ourselves to corresponding predicaments and or opportunities, as well as other people who are busy believing similarly. For example, when people believed the earth was flat, and some still do, remember we talked about that, they lived as though it were, afraid to venture too far lest they fall off the edge. So to them, it might just as well have been flat. We are so free, we can actually experience what has never actually been true as though it were true. So again, what's the theme today? Gorillas. So if you believe in the gorilla, it's pretty real. It's absolutely real. In fact, you're going to your car. It was just like several years ago, there were moose in the neighborhood, and I remember with my dog, we're like a moose afoot in the yard, like running to the car because the moose are out there. And they were real, actually, then. So we go so our beliefs, whether they are absolutely crazy or true, we act as if they are. And let's say you want an opportunity and the door opens. Oh, I don't believe that's available for me, so let's close the door. The door will still be there. The difference will be if you decide that it's okay and you're worthy enough to take it. That's what this whole philosophy is about. Not about crazy woo-woo weirdy stuff. It's just saying the door's open and I can go through that door just as easily as anyone else. Basically with that. So I just want to briefly, did anyone read my blog this week? Have fun with it. It was about a Hindu myth. And I love myths. All religions and spiritual paths have myths. And I don't use the word myth as a derogatory, say, oh, that's just a myth. It's just make-believe. Our greatest truths live and reside in the stories that we tell. Except in the 20th and 21st century, we've come to this weird thing that unless it's something historically had happened and we've got pictures and witnesses, it has no value. Stories that are made up have sometimes these huge archetypal things in them that speak to the truth, the deeper truth. So I love this myth. The gods and demons were at war. First of all, gods and demons? So here you are, let's say this is real. You're gods, and suddenly, there's demons that tell us that we're not gods anymore. So we have to go to war with them. So first of all, the whole onset of this story is that there's actually good and evil that are literally duking it out in battle. There's lots of different spiritual paths that make that claim. I grew up in one. You probably did too. And we're supposed to be so afraid. Again, maybe instead of demons, we'll call them gorillas in this thing. You're supposed to be afraid of them. And so this war was not going well. Again, you're gods, and suddenly like, we've lost control here. The demons are running amok. So the demons had a superpower, because everyone in these stories have a superpower. So if a demon lost some blood on the battlefield, that blood would instantly replicate the demon, and you could exponentially have this growth of demons. That doesn't sound like a fair fight, does it? So let's put the stop on here for us. So when we pursue this idea of all these terrible things are happening, and God, I have to fight it with all my might, doesn't it have a way of expanding and exploding? As we have been duking it out over Thanksgiving dinner tables for the last few years, Has anything gotten resolved in your families? Not in mine. And probably not by next Thanksgiving. It's like those droplets of blood or it just keeps getting more. So they were facing this. Again, what do we do with more? So again, as we gossip with the members of our family with whom we are in tune with, what do we do about him? What do we do about her? So in this demon and gods thing, they said, well, this isn't working. It's just getting worse. So let's call in reinforcements. So they called in the warrior goddess Kali because she also had a superpower. She knew how to deal with those blood droplet things that they didn't expand. So you thought, this is our girl. Does that sound condescending? This is the great goddess who we need to come here. Why didn't we call her sooner? Because she can deal with these, she can like kill them off and their blood doesn't multiply. We're a done deal. War will be over by dinner. But of course it doesn't go well. Apparently in this story, she gets so like, oh, I've got to get these demons, that she indiscriminately starts like killing everything. What we would judge as both good and bad. And at first the gods were like, oh, look at her go. Let's just set her out. Let's set up a picnic lunch and watch. And it was like, oh, well, this isn't going well, is it? Everybody's getting slaughtered. So again, what does that teach us? We get into this frenzy that for the greater good and the cause of my family, that, again, let's bring it back to the Thanksgiving tables, that I might feel like so entitled to my opinion that I personally caused so much harm and hurt in my family that I don't know how we're going to recover. Remember, they were the problem, and suddenly I became the problem. You ever do that? Do you ever find, we have all had moments, and we don't have to share with our neighbor, that in our frenzy that we became unkind. We all have become unkind in some weaker moments. And as we are doing, don't you know that right afterwards we know immediately, oh, I did something that I can't even believe that I did. I hurt someone, yes, I don't agree with them. But why would I hurt someone on that level? And it's a big lesson ultimately. And it shows this in this Hindu myth that, boy, we just get to this, oh, we have to make things right, that we can become worse than that we think we are battling. So, as they say, the gods said, well, that didn't work. What are we going to do now? So they bring in their final, last thing. In fact, they should have done this in the beginning. Don't you, when you finally come to a greater truth within yourself, like, why did I chase the gorilla for 5 years when this is what I should have done? Was I too afraid? Wasn't able to be vulnerable in that point? Any number of ways. But we come to that realization like, why was I doing this? This is what we're going to do. So in this Hindi myth, they bring in Shiva, who is known as the god of destruction. Now, doesn't that just like, who would call the god of destruction? I've caused enough destruction on my own. But the full name of Shiva is the goddess of destruction of lies, or the goddess of truth. So it's not that, he brings a warring destruction. He brings absolute truth to the situation. And in the way the version I was reading this week, it said that he threw himself at the feet of Kali. In other words, she was on such a rampage that she had to tackle him. Have you ever had to feel that with yourself? It's like, I have myself so worked up that I think someone needs to tackle me and just say, stop already. And that's what we have to do to ourselves when we get to those moments. It's like, just going to confess here, there's been times in my car that I'm like, people must think that I'm crazy driving next to me. I said, John, just stop it already. Just stop with that noise in your head and just stop it already. It's like Kali tackling me, like, enough. And that's what it takes sometimes. Tackling the gorilla, basically, that we've made excuses, but that Shiva energy is to say, I'm willing to stand in the truth regardless of my perceived fears about what that will be. You can never go wrong with the truth, but we talk ourselves into believing that there's always a reason not to. In fact, a note I wrote is that often our prayers or intentions we set that aren't of the highest energy, let's say, they're like Shiva antidotes. They keep Shiva away. It's like we'll do anything to try to work the system to not go into the truth. So it's like this repellent to the truth sometimes of the intentions that we can set until we come to that Shiva moment saying that it doesn't matter to me the physical outcome. What matters to me is standing in the greater truth of who I am and where I need to be right now. And that always works out. Have you found that? Ultimately, not to say that you don't go through discomfort. It doesn't mean that you don't end up saying goodbye to certain things in your life that you were holding on, but there's something about that energy of just standing in the truth and just saying, this is what needs to be. And your world seems to open up in a different path. And it's very humbling, actually. After so much just chasing our own tail, or should we say, having our own gorillas chase us in the jungle, that we finally get to the point that we're ready to be grounded right where we are. And you know what that feeling is like. You actually, even if you're saying, no, that never happened to me, it really has happened to you. There's that feeling of just intense, how do I put it, stillness. This is the right decision to make. This is the right thing to say in amends of what I may have done. This is the right thing not to do right now. It's that moment of clarity that we get that, and we even get beyond judging ourselves. Yes, I was not my best self. But I feel that connection right now, and this is what I have to do. It's almost like a timeless moment. And if you can't recall one of those right now, spend some time with it this week, because you have all had them. Absolutely, you have all had them. Multiple times, and I think that we take them for granted sometimes, but there are moments of many miracles where we push all that stuff aside and just say, this is where we are. This is who I am. I'm here to be of service. I'm here to be in service in whatever way that I need to be. After all that stuff. So in this Hindu myth, it would be easy to say, well, why didn't they just call Shiva in the first place? Just get there. I don't know. I think sometimes we've lost his phone number. You know what I mean? Or we're out of cell service or something. It just, sometimes there's some things that we need to go through till we can get there again. So I just want to close today with, I think this is put really well by, in this quote, from an author who I forgot to write down. But ask me later, I'll know. It says, thus, we might be able to understand that in all the mystical traditions of the world over, one who sees through the illusion of the opposites is called liberated, because they are freed from the pairs of opposites. They are freed in this life from the fundamentally nonsensical problems and conflicts involved in the world of opposites. Not good versus evil, but beyond good and evil. Not life against death, but a center of awareness that transcends both. So let's just take this in. Let's just take a breath together. Let us be grateful for this amazing day. It is amazing. We are blessed on so many levels. And so we allow ourselves to know the deeper truth of who we are and where we are. And acknowledging some of the circumstances might not be comfortable. We allow ourselves to rest in the truth nonetheless. We are infinite spiritual beings who are here to learn and to serve. And we say yes. We let go of all excuses. We let go for reasons why we can't. We are centered here in this moment to be of service. And we say yes. So with this simple truth of who we are, we sit in gratitude and thanksgiving. We allow life to flow exactly as it needs to flow to serve the purpose of our service. We accept the surprises that are along the way in great gratitude. And so in gratitude, we just let this go. We release it. We release it into the heart of mind and spirit. We know that when we release it, it gets reflected back to us in the most perfect form available. And so it is.